Hello, I'm Steve Maskery and welcome to a very warm Workshop Essentials. These wardrobe cabinets are going to be screwed together using pocket hole joinery. Now, I don't know about you, but pocket hole joinery is the joinery that I love to hate. I love the fact that it's strong and fast, and mainly I love it because I can build it in the workshop and then dismantle it all and carry everything up in individual boards. But there is nothing pretty about a pocket hole. It's ugly as sin, really. So if you don't want to look at something that's ugly, the best thing is not to look at it at all. So all my pockets are going to be on faces that are never ever seen. So the back of the back, the top of the top, which is what I've got here, and the underside of the bottom. There'll be nothing showing on the sides, on the outside, or indeed anywhere inside the cabinet. Now, rather than measure out where they're going to go, I've made myself a little rod, and there's a big one there for the vertical panels, the backs, and this one has got the short dimensions on one face, so that goes there like that, tick, tick, tick. And the other side has got all the ones for this edge. So I can simply put the rod in place and mark where I want my pockets to be.
There, there, and there.
Now, I'm doing this job on my workmate for a couple of reasons. One is to do with clamping, because I can clamp this to the back edge nicely like that, there and there. And the other is to do with accessibility, because I need to be able to get to both sides. I need to get to this side for setting it up, but I need to get to that side for doing the actual cutting. So, having got that clamped nice and firmly, and use a little square, my jig goes up to the pencil mark and then flush with the edge. There we go. And as you can see, I need to get round to the other side. And this is where we come across the first of pocket hole joinery's weaknesses, in my opinion. And that is, there is zero proper dust extraction. So you have to have a hose in one hand and the drill in the other. Now, at least it switches on automatically, which is a big help. And then we come to what I think is the second of pocket hole joinery's weaknesses. And that is, on veneered board in particular, it's not even a very clean cut. I mean, that doesn't look very good at all to me. And the reason is, the cutting edge of that drill, as it goes round, is pushing the veneer into the board on one side, but ripping it up off the surface of the board on the other side. And it's not quite so bad when I'm cutting in line with the grain, as I'm doing on this edge, but when I'm drilling across the grain, which is what I'm doing here, these are really very rough indeed, and I have to go round every one with a bit of sandpaper or a sharp blade to clean off all the whiskers. And when you've got lots and lots to do, well, you just don't want to be doing it, do you? Now, as you can see, I've already assembled one of the cabinets. This is the left-hand cabinet. And it's very clean, there are no gaps, there are no visible screw holes anywhere because they're all on surfaces that I can't see. They're on the top of the roof, the back of the back and the underside of the floor. And I'm particularly pleased that I went to the trouble of centering that veneer seam down the middle of the back. It wasn't the most efficient use of the board, but it was the best use of the board. I know it'll never be seen, but one day when somebody takes this apart, they might just look at that and say, oh, we took a bit of care about that. It's also perfectly square. If I put my square of Thales in the corner here, all 3 points touch, perfect. It couldn't be any squarer than that. Now, as you can see, I've started to assemble the right-hand cabinet. And I'm doing it on the plinth base, so that it's lifted off the floor a little bit. I thought about doing it on my cutting cum assembly table, but I'd never get it off there. At least this way I can hoist it up myself. I'm building on the plinth base to give me some room underneath for clamps, and the towels are to protect the base from being scratched, because that's finished polished. So this is the inside face of the left-hand panel of the right-hand cabinet. That's the top and that's the bottom. And they're already flush with the front, which is on that side. So the next thing to do is to put the back panel in position. I've got my clamps ready. It's very important to clamp up very firmly before the screws go in, because the screw is going in at an angle which pulls it down into the face of the board, which we do want, but also pulls it a little bit away from the back edge. And I don't want that, I want it to stay flush. So I've got to clamp it up to within an inch of its life, and while I do that, you can go and have a cup of tea. I'll see you in a minute. Now I'm using the proper Craig screws. I know I'm not being sponsored by Craig or anybody else for that matter, but these are actually excellent. They've got a flat head which pulls the MDF down without digging into it. And I always use a little bit of paraffin wax on them. This is an old candle, because a bit of lubrication makes them go in a bit easier. So I'm all clamped up, everything's nice and flush, and I want it to stay that way when these go in. So I'm not using the screw to pull the two pieces together. I'm using the screw to keep the two pieces together that are already pulled together. And I've got a knee pad because I've got dodgy knees after 10 years of being a cable installer. There we go. Perfect. Now I'm not going to do every single screw hole at this stage. It's not necessary. I want just enough to get the thing together so that I can drill all the holes for the shelf pins. And now I can put the outside panel on. Well, I'm all clamped up, and I do need the clamps here as well because the board is no longer flat. Although I've got a decent sized workshop, I've got a lot of stuff and I don't have space to keep all my sheet materials flat as they should be stored. So these have been leant up against the wall, and this project has been taking me, well, months now actually. I'd have had it done 2 months ago. I wasn't trying to film it at the same time. So it's got quite a bit of a bow to it that way, but of course it flattens out just as soon as it's clamped up. So I've got my screws, I've got my wax, I can see what I'm doing, and it's time to put the last few screws in. So all I've got to do now is get it upright. And that was easier 20 years ago. I'm making a shelf pin hole drilling jig. Ideally, all the holes should be exactly the same distance apart. But by using a jig like this, it doesn't matter if they are not, just as long as they are the same in all four corners of the cabinet. I put a big datum mark on the bottom end, just so that I don't accidentally use it upside down. Well, that's that job finished. I'm very pleased with that. I need to make some shelves. There's going to be a fixed shelf in the middle here to tie the two sides together to stop them bowing out. I don't know exactly where it will be because until I know where the hinges are exactly, that will determine which of these holes I put the shelf in. I don't want the shelf and the hinges to foul each other. And there'll be one in there as well, but again, I can't fit that until I know exactly how far down my trousers hang. So, some of these panel sides have only had one coat of oil, so I've got some more oiling to do, so that's going to take me a couple of days really. But apart from that, these are pretty much finished. So I've got to dismantle them, oil them, and then I can get them in the house and out of my way in here. I've got panels everywhere, I can't move for the darn things. So I should have a little bit of space. Well, temporarily, because I've got to go shopping for some more boards to make the doors, which will be the next part of the project. So join me then. Thank you for watching. Until the next time, enjoy your workshop. Cheerio.